This month on 219 West, even the youngest New Yorkers are feeling the effects of budget cuts as child care programs go on the chopping block.
What are they going to do if they don't have anybody to take care of their children while they go to work?
We take a look at the evolution and future of journalism with legendary anchorman Dan Rather. And we meet an artist who lives and paints above ground zero. His work offers comfort for the future and compassion for the past. Hello and welcome to this month's edition of 219 West, the monthly news magazine produced by the students of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism for CUNY TV. I'm Anais Morales.
And I'm Małgorzata Wojtunik. We'll have all of these stories, plus we'll learn about Broadway stars who are taking their talents back to the community. And we take a look at some talented gamers who are bringing the news to a younger audience. But first, as June rolls around, budget cuts are on the horizon.
Just hours before revealing his $65 billion budget proposal for next year, a spending plan that anticipates teacher layoffs and closing firehouses and libraries, Mayor Bloomberg made a concession. He agreed to scale back proposed cuts in funding for early childhood care. Still, the remaining reductions will affect the youngest and most vulnerable New Yorkers. 219 West's Margaret Teich explains what's at stake.
Are you my mommy cat? No.
3-year-old Sophie Simon learned to read at the University Settlement on the Lower East Side. Sophie is one of the approximately 100,000 children whose childcare is paid for by New York City. But the next chapter in Sophie's education is uncertain. Even though he scaled back the size of the proposed cuts, Mayor Bloomberg is still planning on slashing $50 million from the early childhood education budget. Doing so will displace about 10,000 kids. There are 152 children ages 3 to 5 at the University Settlement Early Childhood Education Program in the Lower East Side. After the cuts, it is uncertain how many children will remain.
The parents of these children, they don't make enough money to have private babysitters or private daycares. So if we cut these programs, what are they going to do if they don't have anybody to take care of their children while they go to work?
Maria Flores has worked at the University Settlement for 6 years. She knows firsthand the importance of this preschool experience.
I came from Mexico and I didn't know English at all. So I can feel the empathy with these students. Good morning, everybody. So I learned English just like them, little by little, with a lot of reinforcement, with a lot of help from my children, and this is what we're doing with them.
Good morning.
When they go to school, public schools, they are really ready with social skills, math, with reading. I mean, the basics for them to be ready and actually be able to interact with a large group of people. We prepare them to be in a public school and not being like feeling isolated.
1,
2.
Magdalene Gomes is the Social Services Director at the 125-year-old University Settlement.
We have 3 staff in each classroom. We have a foster grandparent that comes into the classroom, just extra support. Early Childhood Center also provides breakfast, lunch, and snack. They cook the meal here. You know, they get all the basics that they need in preparation for the grade schools.
My name is Genevieve Simon. This is my daughter, Alyssa Simon. She graduated from University of Settlement in 2003. This is Arlene Simon. She graduated in 2006. And this is Sophie Simon, still attending the University of Settlement.
Genevieve Simon was born in the Bronx but grew up in Mexico City. After the 9th grade, she was forced to quit school and start working. Several years ago, she moved back to New York and had 3 children. Her husband, a native New Yorker, had been a pupil at the University Settlement. Genevieve began volunteering at the University Settlement and saw how much she still needed to learn.
Social workers, they used to tell me, you should go back to school. You have a certain potential, so you have to go, you have to grow, you have to learn. I'm trying to work out on my degree, a bachelor's degree, and I'm working full-time. And then it is very, like, more than a full-time job. I'm not just sitting, I'm not just wasting the time.
University settlement and programs like it are facing budget cuts not seen for a generation. Even though the fiscal year starts July 1st, some families have already received notifications that their children will have to find somewhere else to go.
The city recognizes that these service reductions will present challenges for the families who are impacted, and we are working with parents to help them find alternative childcare. After careful consideration, we choose to approach these cuts so that families who have received childcare for the shortest duration will not be affected.
In September, Sophie will start a pre-K program at the school where her sisters go, but she's lucky because there are very few spots. Still, the program's hours are half as long as university settlements.
Thank God that I had the extended family, parents-in-law, my parents, and they always willing to support me at any time with my daughters. But what would it be if I didn't have them? I would probably be either deciding or continuing the education or stop working. But she's gonna be in an apartment. Their grandparents basically, they don't do much. A lot of TV, and they don't read, so when it is cold, she really like not going to be outside, not even for a walk. So yeah, it is. And it's just in an apartment. She cannot even have a tricycle in it. I mean, it is a little bit concerning about her development now.
One thing that's been really great about New York City's system and has been a strong commitment to the system is that we've understood that there needs to be childcare for working parents. The city does not have no money. The city is not broke. Funds can be found to support services that we deem are necessary, and we should consider the care and education of young children to be necessary.
Economists have found that for every $1 spent on early childhood education, there is a $7 to $9 savings on spending for programs like special education and the criminal justice system. That's the macroeconomic view. For Genevieve Simon, it comes down to something as simple as this.
This is something that she's gonna be missing, not being a university settlement.
Margaret Teich is with us now. So Margaret, why did Mayor Bloomberg decide to restore the funding at the last minute?
So the mayor decided to restore only part of the funding, so there's still $50 million that has not been restored. But the reason he did what he did was mostly because of pressure from city council members and from borough presidents. Folks really came out and told their representatives, please do not cut this, we really need these services, and so they therefore told the mayor, you can't do this.
Besides language acquisition, what are some of the other benefits of early childhood education?
Studies have found that that children who do not participate in early childhood education programs are 25% more likely to drop out of school. They're 40% more likely to have teen pregnancies, and they're 70% more likely to be arrested for a violent crime. So the benefit of early childhood education goes way beyond just academic gains.
Wow, so it seems as though Sophie may have a place to go now. What are some other options for daycare?
Sophie, as you mentioned, does have somewhere to go. Most of these kids, though, will either have to go with a neighbor or a friend of a friend, or for a lot of them, their parents will actually have to stop working. And this is very disruptive to the family unit, and also it's not as good as a professional learning environment where the kids were before.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope that Mayor Bloomberg restores the rest of the funding for these kids. Thank you so much. Gosha, will send it right back over to you.
Arts and culture programs within the city's public schools are also in jeopardy. This has inspired one Broadway star to lend his passion to make a difference. Alcione Gonzalez reports on a group of Latinos who dare to go beyond the Great White Way.
For Luis Salgado, being somebody else came with the territory of being on stage.
Let me get away from my accent, let me get away from my movement style to fit into something else.
That was until the Tony Award-winning musical In the Heights came into his life. Luis was now free to be Luis.
It was just being surrounded by who I am, just being surrounded by the yes we can of, I can speak my language, I can speak in my accent, I can dance my rhythms, I can be proud of where I come from and not feel judged, you know. And in the Heights was that. It was a permission to be who you are as a Latino.
The musical celebration of New York's Latino culture inspired the Puerto Rico native to address the needs of his community. He decided to do it through what he knew best, the arts.
I started dancing when I was 9 years old, and in this after-school program met who became my mentor, Jose Rivera. And just the amount of inspiration I got through folkloric dance and through theater and through trying to sing or just reciting a poem. And that was the first approach I had with arts that affected me in a way of who I was becoming.
5, 6, 7, 8. In 2007, Salgado founded Revolución Latina, a non-profit organization that brings free theater art programs to New York's Latino communities.
What is it that I have to offer that will inspire you? And if you're inspired, what is it that you have to offer that will inspire somebody else? And it's like this domino effect.
A domino effect that began with Salgado using his talent to teach young, aspiring artists. The other dominoes fell into place when he brought his Broadway friends to help.
Broadway artists are supported by these artists, and everybody's donating their time to impact the life of these kids who are our future.
Broadway star Gabriela Garcia remembers the day Salgado came to her with the idea.
He contacted me saying, I want to talk to you about this project that I'm doing. And he wanted to gather a group of Latinos that were pretty much living their dream as actors or dancers on Broadway so that our Latino community could see that that was a possible dream. And I said, absolutely, you know, how can I not do that? Anything you need.
In the early days, money was the greatest need. It came out of Salgado and Garcia's own pockets.
Every week we would come in and put like $20, $30, $50, say like, here's a donation to Revolución Latina.
You know, there was a point in my life, and this is important to say because, you know, I was on Broadway, dance captain for a major show. Just amazing, you know, you're like, okay, now what? There was like a little hole, a little void in my heart, and I didn't know what it was.
That hole has now been filled with the impact Revolución Latina has had on the children that walk through its doors.
I've always wanted to be a dancer, but unfortunately, I haven't gotten the opportunity. When I kind of talk about these things, I get like all emotional because it just makes me think like, oh, this is what I want to do. And sometimes I feel like it's so far from me. Like sometimes I like people push me down and say, Samantha, you're never gonna get there. Just get over it. But then I have all this passion inside of me that it just keeps me going, and I don't care if they just push me down. I'll get back up and I'll start again.
Now, 4 years in, Revolución Latina is supported by a parent organization, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. The group's mission also involves funding educational programs.
For me, it's very important that Revolución Latina continues to move forward, not only, you know, empowering our community, but getting to the schools and being able to be a supplement to the schools' work.
After only a 2-month run, Samantha is hooked.
I would like to get involved as much as I can, you know, productions, educational programs. Like, I'm gonna be in the summer camp. I know I'm gonna be there and I can't miss it, so you'll probably see me there.
Music to Salgado and Garcia's ears. For 219 West, I'm Alcione Gonzalez.
And up next, we take a close-up look at the changing world of delivering news. Then Rather joins us in studio to share his thoughts on the future of journalism.
Where we are in journalism now is the old order is gone. The new order, whatever it is to be in journalism, is not yet in place.
Welcome back. For us here at the Graduate School of Journalism, one of the most interesting things is how important social media have been in spreading the news about Osama bin Laden's death. Even before President Obama spoke, I found out about it from Facebook. Anais, how did you find out about Osama bin Laden's death?
A friend of mine sent me a message on BlackBerry Messenger, and I began to live tweet his speech that same night. The New York Daily News had an article that said that close to 3,500 tweets per second were sent out. Among those tweets, Mayor Bloomberg tweeted, "Osama bin Laden is dead, the World Trade Center site is teeming with new life, and New York City spirit has never been stronger." Even celebrity Tyra Banks took the time to tweet, "My brother has been a U.S. soldier for over 20 years. Today, I salute him and all of our brave, selfless military women and men. All this tweeting drove people to their television sets to confirm the news.
While many of us learned about Osama bin Laden's death through social media, 10 years ago on September 11th, millions of viewers learned of the attacks on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon from our next guest, Dan Rather. He is the former anchor of CBS Evening News who holds the longest tenure as a network anchorman in American television history. Today, he still reports, produces, and hosts his show, Dan Rather Reports, on HDNet. 219 West's Jessica Cortimonge sat down with Dan Rather to learn more about his view on the changing face of journalism.
Mr. Rather, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here because we want to discuss the future of journalism, or the state of current journalism, because we are the next generation of reporters, and so we want to learn from someone like you, someone who has bridged a gap between the birth of broadcasting with Edward R. Murrow to today's world, where it seems there's been a shift in the way that people consume the news. And I'm speaking of the internet and everything it's brought to us. So in your opinion, how do we in television news keep up with the speed of information delivery, and how do we use it to our advantage?
Well, first of all, we probably won't keep up. The technology and the internet in particular are moving so quickly. The momentum is all forward. It's full throttle forward. There's no way we can keep up. So the answer to how we keep up, we do the best we can, but realizing that we're always going to be at least a step and probably several steps behind the technology and the continuing spread of the internet. That where we are in journalism, and I'm not just speaking of American journalism, although American journalism, for all of its ills, and I think it has a lot, I do not accept myself from that criticism, is still the best in the world, because freedom of the press is embedded in the Bill of Rights, which is embedded in the Constitution. It's the bedrock of where we are. And a free and independent, truly independent, fiercely independent press when necessary is the red beating heart of freedom and democracy. That's what makes it important. Now, but where we are in journalism now is the old order is gone. The new order, whatever it is to be in journalism, is not yet in place. The iron core has been shrinking. The number of places where news is packaged has increased, but the places where actual news is gathered has decreased, has been contracting. So it's a very dangerous period. Journalists, we've lost our guts. We've lost our spine. We've wandered away from what we should be. That what so many of us aspire to be is an honest broker of information who is absolutely committed to independence, neutrality, and accuracy. That's journalism at its best. Now, those of us who are charged with the responsibility of doing that have in many ways, as I say, lost our grit. We won't ask the tough question. We don't dig deep when we're fearful that it will offend someone in power. So that's where I think we are in American journalism. And your question about how do we keep up, we do our best to keep up when we keep reminding ourselves where we fit in society, where we can contribute, where we can be part of something bigger than ourselves. And that is to create quality journalism with integrity.
There's a lot of international news outlets opening networks in English, doing reports that are more in-depth, more analysis. And they're here now. They're in the United States, and they're competing against the American networks. Do you think maybe that will be the shift towards something like that?
Well, that shift has already started to a degree. I think it's limited in its potential, but your basic point is well taken. This will be part of whatever the future becomes. But you know, we're dealing with a highly fractionalized audience now. The competitive pit, the arena, as I call it for journalism, has expanded so greatly with satellite, cable, the internet, and the audience is so fractured. But there is a huge audience out there, I'm absolutely convinced of it, that just yearns, give me some real news, give me some facts. Yes, I'm interested mildly in opinion, but give me some facts. Give me some analysis that connects the dots of the facts. Give me real international reporting, people who walk the ground to get the truth. Give me the deep digging investigative report. That audience is out there. I know it's out there. But because the audience, if you follow the point here, is so fractured in so many places on the dial in television to go to, for example, then plus the internet, which is almost endless, that if we aren't careful, what happens with the public, our consumers of news, is they just get overwhelmed like with a tsunami, saying this is a flood of opinion, political manipulation, propaganda, all of it out there.
And now to finish things up, you have signed a deal, I believe, with Grand Central Publishing to pen your memoir, which I believe will be called Summing Up.
Well, that's the working title.
That's the working title. Well, I was wondering if, just to wrap things up here, you wouldn't mind giving us a little taste of what we can expect from that.
I want to talk about what's happened to news, why it's happened, how it happened, why the public should care about it. And then I intend to ruminate, that's probably the right verb, I intend to ruminate some about what the future might look like.
Great. Well, I look forward to reading that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
As Dan Rather pointed out, technology has turned the news business on its head. A recent hackathon here at the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism brought together a group of programmers. They are figuring out how 40 years of video game creation could change audience engagement with the news. 219 West, Thomas Chan reports.
Let's play a game. Here's a headline from a newspaper. Can you guess what newspaper it's from? Only 4 scenic routes left in country. That's The Onion. How about this one? 5 easy ways to save on groceries. That's Forbes. This little game of Who's Headline was the winning idea one April weekend, right here at the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism.
Today we are doing a news and games hack day. We've got journalists, developers, and designers working on different kinds of applications in news and applying game mechanics and game incentives.
Journalists and computer programmers work together in a feverish day-long hackathon to envision a future of news and gaming.
Putting photos from the Daily News' photo archive, which is really expansive. It's one of the oldest archives of pictures of New York City, onto Foursquare. As they're going around New York City, they can find old photos of New York, how it used to look, where they are right now.
Each team had 8 hours to come up with an idea, design it, and then code, and code some more to get a working prototype. It's a task which any programmer will probably tell you takes a great deal of time and effort under deadline pressure.
It's not just about creating software, that really today's intention is to create concepts and be able to illustrate those concepts, turning something that's just the figment of an idea into something real.
Journalism and video games have crossed paths before, mostly through news games. Short bits of media content about what's in the news, ranging from the whimsical to the insightful. Games that invite players to learn about real-world issues like global warming, airport security, and critiques of fast food by exploring virtual models.
Games are simulations of how things work.
Heather Chaplin, a speaker at the hackathon, is a journalist who has covered video games for a decade.
For explaining how complex, dynamic things actually work and getting that across in a really visceral manner, in a way that people will actually understand and learn, it can be a really, really great tool.
For instance, a game like Windfall asks players to build wind farms and sell electricity, but with a catch. In the game, and incidentally as in the real world, people don't want to live near wind turbines. The NIMBY effect. Windfall translates that into a monetary cost that players have to overcome.
The hackathon at CUNY was about taking news and games one step further through gamification. Gamification is a new idea with a lot of buzz, and its basic goal is to apply the lessons from 40 years of video game development to encourage real-world behaviors.
For instance, we all know someone who can't stand eating healthy. What if we could award points and achievements to junk food lovers for going on a vegetarian diet? Proponents of gamification think extending a game layer to journalism might get us all to consume a lot more news. But they do express caution. Jeremy Kaplan, Director of Education for CUNY's Entrepreneurial Journalism Program.
Games can be a great way of getting people excited about participating in something, but they're not a substitute for quality. So if the objective is to create a quality news experience or to create a quality site of any sort, That should be first and foremost the objective, and not making things fun or flashy or adding sizzle just for sizzle's sake.
But for now, no one really knows what the future of news and gaming might be, except maybe some pioneering programmers. Thomas Chan, 219 West.
For nearly 10 years, Ground Zero has been the site of sadness, political strife, and most recently, spontaneous celebration after the demise of bin Laden. One artist has had a bird's eye view to paint and film the rebirth of the World Trade Center. Sharina Navani has this story.
You know, at first I wasn't sure how people would react if somebody was on site painting or drawing. But over time, some people are fascinated with the act of drawing. Some of the guys seem to like being drawn or being painted. I mean, particularly in these bigger paintings, I think it really strikes a chord in them that their work is being honored.
Marcus Robinson's hands have been documenting the rebirth of the World Trade Center since 2006. A Belfast native and jazz enthusiast, Robinson learned a thing or two about being patient while waiting for his request to be approved.
It took about 4 years, a sense of complete and utter, partly disbelief to think that after all these years of preparation, the door had opened right at that time. So one of the construction workers took us all the way down, round, and then down the ramp, right into the part of the site where they were starting to dig the foundations of Tower 1. There was one of these gigantic drilling machines that was chiseling through the bedrock. The bedrock, when it's exposed, it's incredibly beautiful. There's something extraordinary about rock. They found the remains of a glaciated river bed under where Tower 4 is being built.
Documenting the development of One World Trade Center was just the beginning. His art and film took on a life of its own as the years and construction progressed.
So the early fascination is with the changing landscape, and at the same time, as time has gone on, something like the scale of being up so high, and the skyline of Manhattan in the distance, and the silhouetted figures of the workers.
Not only is Marcus able to capture the rebuild of the site through his art and filmmaking, he's also able to capture the emotion of the construction worker who works here every day.
We don't forget. We're here every day. We get reminded every day. You know, there's still, you know, we're still digging things up that were untouched since then.
So I think there's a lot of emotion in the air around here. You know, I think there's a lot of energy. I think over a period of time, you know, over quite a long period of time, you go through a whole roller coaster of different emotions.
Robinson hopes his documentary and paintings will be viewed by larger audiences in the future.
To allow time, to allow it, as we were saying, to allow it to evolve through time, and, you know, to see if it strikes a chord with people. I mean, I'm hoping that the work will stand the test of time, and it will document something with a spirit of integrity.
Art that is full of passion for the future and compassion for those from the past. For 219 West, I'm Sharina Navani.
And that's it for this month's edition of 219 West from the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism here in Times Square. Thank you for watching. I'm Małgorzata Wojtunik.
And I'm Anais Morales. We'll be back next month with more stories from the 5 boroughs. In the meantime, don't forget to check out our podcast on iTunes and follow us on Twitter. To watch past segments and learn more about our crew, visit our website. From all of us here at 219 West, thanks for watching.